There really is nothing more disgusting and demoralizing than watching homemade porn made by a drug addict, utterly fascinated by his own genitalia and what he can do with said genitalia. Unfortunately, I know this because when the story of Hunter Biden's hard drive first emerged in October of 2020, the mainstream media, of course, refused to investigate the contents. Therefore, of course, it fell to the conservative media to investigate. That's how I read the emails and watched some of the videos made available on the internet. Truly awful, awful stuff. And consider this next time you see Hillary Rodham Clinton on television distracting, talking about the radicalized GOP. She and the good Dr. Jill and Barack and Michelle and so many other absurd characters on the left we see on television every day have seen much more of what's inside that laptop. After all, that's their job. But we've got some news today. We're learning there's more, much, much more, on the laptop from heaven. Jack Maxey was a co-host on Steve Bannon's War Room. He was also someone who had gotten his hands on a copy of Hunter Biden's hard drive, which he handed over to outlets such as the Washington Post, the New York Times, as well as the Daily Mail and the New York Post, and Republican Senator Chuck Grassley. And of course, as we all know, originally the only two recipients to act on this hard drive were the Daily Mail and the New York Post. Social media outlets promptly buried all reports about emails showing that Joe Biden had almost certainly gotten a cut from deals Joe made possible through his useless drug-addicted, sex-addicted son, who had cut said deals while in Ukraine, China, and other foreign venues. Because Hunter Biden brought nothing, absolutely nothing, to the table in these locations. Well, other than a temporary increase in illegal drug and sex sales, the only thing he could have really been bringing to the table is access to his father and, of course, the Obama White House. The mainstream media, with support from the intelligence officials, I use that term lightly, chimed in, assuring all the typical talking heads that the hard drive was just racist. Or no, that's not right. Wait a minute. Oh, that's right. It was Russian disinformation. I'm sorry. Potato at this point. The tech tyrants and mainstream media, and apparently, if we're being honest, Chuck Grassley himself, didn't want Americans to learn these terrible things about Joe Biden, lest they interfere with destroying Donald Trump, and they succeeded in that effort, at least during the election. Let me reiterate real quick because it's important, kiddos, for us not to forget the timeline here with Mr. Grassley. He had this information all along, and as Fox and the Newsmaxes and many other outlets championed Mr. Grassley as a hero down the road, in typical old guard fashion, the man said squat until it was safe to do so. Also now, when it's clear that Biden must be ousted to save the Democrat Party, the party organs, the New York Times and the Washington Post, along with even CNN, have suddenly admitted that the hard drive is real and the contents legitimate. You know, I wonder how they'll handle the fact that the first reveal was just a portion of the hard drive. Maxey, who's fled to Switzerland to avoid feared retaliation in America. Who could blame him with people like Hillary Rodham Clinton running around free? I mean, eat your heart out, tattooed cartel leaders, am I right? Anyways, Maxey claimed there's a whole lot more on that hard drive we haven't seen. Now this is where things get very interesting. Maxey, a former co-host of ex-Donald Trump advisor Steve Bannon's podcast, The War Room, claims he and his colleagues have found 450 gigabytes of deleted material, including 80,000 images and videos and more than 120,000 archived emails. And he said he intends to post them all online in a searchable database in the coming weeks. Oh joy, another deep dive into the disgusting swamp that was Hunter Biden's life. Although this time, maybe the mainstream media will take that dive too, in service of getting Joe Biden out of the White House as soon as possible. It most certainly will be fascinating to see what happens if this additional material shows how closely Biden was involved in his son's business affairs, or reveals that Hunter was engaged in illegal, therefore blackmailable sexual activity. Here's a disgusting example. Maybe when he was in China, the communists sent him little girls to his hotel room. I have absolutely no evidence of that. but I've got a hunch. I mean, communists do what communists do. In addition to promising to release more data from the laptop, Maxey also voiced his anger with the FBI, which could have vindicated Trump from the Democrats' Ukraine hoax against him, a hoax that led to his first impeachment in December 2019. Quote, the former Bannon podcast host said he is livid at the FBI, who he believes slow-walked their investigation into Hunter and failed to enter the laptop they received from Mac Isaac into evidence for months, unquote. Quote, the FBI had this on the 9th of December 2019, he said. I suppose the first person betrayed was a sitting United States president in an impeachment hearing, when the FBI had the exculpatory evidence in their hands to have that end instantly, and they did nothing. Quote, the second group of people to be betrayed were all of the Democratic candidates in the spring primaries that year, he added. Quote, the American people were utterly betrayed because I guarantee you that Joe Biden couldn't run for dog catcher if the American people knew about this laptop, unquote. You know, it's interesting to wonder when our federal government became so damned corrupt. Was it in the 1930s when FDR expanded it? Was it during World War II when so much money was flowing through D.C.? Was it during the 1950s and 60s when J. Edgar Hoover's power was at its apex? Was it when JFK allegedly, as a thank you to the mob for helping him get elected, unionized the federal workforce? Or was it when the Clintons' monumental corruption took D.C. by storm? The one thing we know for certain is that the corruption was in place under Obama. That was when the vice president dragged his son around the damned world in an influence peddling operation, while the bureaucrats gave up any pretense of nonpartisanship. The federal beast was sweating and salivating, ready to pounce when Trump came into office, promising to clean things up. And to give credit where it's due, the bureaucrats, well, they won that battle, at least for now. At the end of the day, I've seen enough of Hunter Biden's naked ass to last me 10 lifetimes, but I really hope we get more info on John Kerry's kid, Nancy Pelosi's boy, and of course Mitt Romney's as well. Ukraine was one big laundromat for corrupt politicians on both sides of the aisle for years. I put together kind of a cluster of clips of Jack Maxey. I couldn't find the whole interview. So frankly, I just kind of kifed him off of Benny Johnson's show, which you probably should check out here on YouTube, and he's a good follow on Twitter as well. Anyways, here's Jack Maxey, former co-host of the Steve Bannon's War Room.
Visible emails were about 8,000 of them, but 120,000 of them were in archives and very difficult to reach, and sometimes the search bar didn't work, as we now know. And so at first we thought we were just going to bring to the fore all the things that Merriman and Associates had found, 128,000 emails, 28,000 images, yada, yada. We did that very quickly. But my guys were so good, and one of them particularly said, I feel like there's more there, Jack. Can I look? I said, sure, yeah. All I know how to do is turn on my computer. That's about it. And he started searching. First thing we found were 4,000 little microscopic thumbnails of erased pictures. Those pictures were brought up. We can see them all. Then I'm sitting there. I've been on the phone, as you can imagine, all week, and he says, my God, I just found another 20 gigabytes of this and that and this and that. And ultimately we found 450 gigabytes of what Hunter thought was erased material. Amongst those things were 80,000 images and videos. And when my tech guy first started looking at them, it was very uncomfortable. Many of them were young girls, for some reason, sending pictures to Hunter with their tongues out. And I said, you've got to stop. You have to stop. If he meant to erase these pictures, I was feeling there could be a high likelihood that there was something that no man or woman with a soul would want to see, and then I would be instantly obligated to go to the Swiss police. And I wanted to make sure before that eventuality had to come to pass that we had archived all the other material. Now, since then, we found thousands and thousands of PDFs we didn't know about, We believe that we've been able to scrape all the attachments. We keep finding more and more things. And so that became quite horrifying. And that's where we are, people. And in short order, I'm going to make it available to the world. My original intention on coming here was to make copies for the United States Senate, the House of Representatives, and U.S. law enforcement, because every single crime that Hunter committed, other than espionage, is also a state crime. Pedophilia, money laundering, grooming of children, human trafficking, drug dealing. All these crimes can be prosecuted at the state level. And as I said earlier, why would we wait for Mrs. Peter Strzok to do something about it? Because we know her husband didn't do anything about it, because he testified against the president in the first impeachment while being in possession of Hunter's laptop. Now, what did they do about it? I don't know. I've not seen any confirmation that they've done anything. As far as I can tell, the trial in Delaware is about taxes. It's not about abusing children. It's not about trafficking women. It's not about putting in jail the crack dealers all across America who Hunter used to keep his habit up. And I think it's very important that I say this right now. The crack laws in the United States of America put almost 200,000 African American males in jail. Anybody can look it up. The ACLU did a study about a lost generation. Joe Biden wrote that law. That law made 1 gram of crack cocaine equal to 100 grams of powder. And it destroyed entire communities. So BLM, if you're listening, I hope you're getting your blood pressure up, because Hunter never got prosecuted.
Okay, let's give credit where it is due. Most of this came by way of the American Thinker. If you liked it, hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't. Leave a comment down below. There's a PayPal link in the description box, so please put $1 in the bucket on the way out the door. I'd like to thank everyone for all your donations. They're much needed and much appreciated. Now, with all that being said, we'll see you next time.
Come on, move. Move. Easy, easy.